So I happen to know very precisely, compared to most people, exactly when I first started my trek on this earth. And that all being a Roman Catholic thing, they sent me to a Roman Catholic grammar school and then a Roman Catholic high school. So the chances are that I would be Roman Catholic, I think statistically, are fairly good. But nonetheless, the law says it's up to you to choose what religion you believe in. And guess what? The definition of heresy is believing that what you believe is up to you.
Yeah, I guess I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you were in a society that, everybody had to be Roman Catholic, or else we've got this nice toasty fire over here for you. I don't know that there's very many places that do that anymore. In fact, Europe, which traditionally had been Roman Catholic, Paris, the Notre Dame Cathedral has not been rebuilt since the fire because it's such an important religious facility. It's a tourist attraction.
Yeah.
That's why people needed it back, and all the donators. I don't know actually, but I'm pretty sure it was people donating money because they wanted that center of Parisian cultural history to be back as a tourist site for people who are visiting. But I mean, by definition, thinking that you have the right to choose your own belief is heresy. So the point he makes in Peter Berger in the heretical imperative is that by being born an American citizen, or naturalizing yourself as an American citizen, either way, you have the right to choose what you believe, and believing that you have that right is heretical. So in other words, just by legal statute and definition of heresy, American citizens are heretics.
I get that logic, but at the same time, it's more like you're born into the circumstances you're born into, and the likelihood of you choosing the religion you choose is based on that circumstance. People that are born into Hindu communities are going to more than likely be Hindu. People that are born into Catholic communities are more than likely going to be Catholic. In the United States, having the choice isn't a heresy. Having the choice is your choice. The heresy comes from the religion itself, because it's heretical to believe otherwise if you believe in a religion. It's not that the government or the nation or the culture here makes it heretical. It's that the religion itself makes it heretical. I mean, heresy itself is a religious term.
Yeah, well, of course, traditionally in Sirius, the Spanish Inquisition, being a heretic
Has consequences.
is serious. Yeah. So it's kind of hilarious, actually.
So dark.
But getting back to the moral argument problem that I posed, by saying David Hume gives us the emotive point of view, or emotivist point of view, or what I like to refer to as the boo hooray.
Oh, yeah.
I guess it's boo hurrah. When you're basically arguing that in ethics, that the theory that moral utterances do not have a truth value, but express the feelings of the speaker, so that murder is wrong is equivalent to down with murder, or boo, hiss, boo, murder, hooray murder? No, we don't
Yeah.
say hooray murder. But so and this, of course, is the modern dilemma with regard to emotions or values. I remember arguing that we typically embed our values in a moral narrative, the moral narrative or a meta-narrative, like the hero's journey or the quest or the monomyth. There are lots of names for it. Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter, Jesus.
Gilgamesh.
I mean, that's one of the students in hearing about this discussion actually went out and discovered at a bookstore that he wanted to buy the book The Hero of a Thousand Faces, and he asked about it, and they had just gotten it in that day,
Huh.
which he considered an omen. And so
Certainly
he
is.
bought it.
Certainly
Hasn't read it yet.
Yeah.
And we'll discover that it's kind of like a phone book of all the stories. 1,000. I don't know if there's actually 1,000 faces in there, but basically it's just an encyclopedic list of the famous heroes in human cultures.
Yeah.
As far as the top ones, and that was Joseph Campbell back. Before we had Star Wars, of course, because actually George Lucas said that Joseph Campbell was his Yoda. So you get the idea that the monomyth is literally the layout for George Lucas sitting down one day and saying, let's make a movie of the monomyth. What we need is this, then we need this, then we need this, and basically coming up with Star Wars, the first movie. But believing that you have that story as the description of yourself and your life and the universe, you have values that are embedded in that monomyth, in that narrative. So the connection to the narrative that you believe, which is why I define religion as belief in a meta-narrative, you can see the way I'm at least considering how our values are embedded in our beliefs. But
Well, it makes sense. You can't have a monomyth without a compass heading. Then your values are your compass heading.
there you go. They go together. And so I'm not suggesting that Americans, by definition, have no compass heading. Because essentially you can't decide to get up in the morning unless you have a reason for doing that. And so, in a very pedantic sense, you have to have a meta-narrative that you believe in.
To some degree.
I mean, it could be, constantly being revamped. In fact, college is when an awful lot of that revision takes place in the mind of the people that are going to college, because you're usually pretty well protected when you're in grammar school and even in high school, although it depends on the high school, depends on the faculty. I remember having a priest, Dr. or Father Hennigan, who was teaching us social studies senior year, and one of the books he required us to read was Freud's little book on the future of an illusion.
Oh, yeah.
Very little book, but that was a startling book to me, which was the point of Father Hennigan's choosing it for us. And notice Roman Catholic churches, or at least Roman Catholic schools, tend to be very liberal in opening up all sorts of possibilities. Part of that, Father Hennigan was an Augustinian, and really the most notorious, air quotes, of the various religious orders in the Catholic Church are the Jesuits. we weren't expecting the Inquisition. But I think of the Jesuits as kind of like the Marines of the church,
Singularly focused.
Yeah, and to become a Jesuit, you actually have to have philosophy. You have to answer all the questions. You have to be personally taken through the tour of all the things that could be wrong with the faith,
Right.
so that by the time you actually take holy orders and become an actual Jesuit, Order of Order of Jesus, right? You're
Backing on into it.
as Pope Francis actually was as a Jesuit. The experiences you've had have taken you through all the possible turmoil, so that you're essentially already well aware of the arguments against belief, and you've achieved the kind of understanding yourself to explain why it's still a persistently good thing to believe in the Christian meta-narrative. Last class, when we were talking about the contrast between Nietzsche and Aquinas, Aquinas, of course, represents that particular meta-narrative that a Jesuit would espouse, right? And there's C.S. Lewis. An awful lot of people like C.S. Lewis, typically because they love the Narnia stories, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Mr. Tumnus, you're from the country of Wardrobe, or whatever,
First series ever.
Yeah, I drive down my street. My one neighbor has a lamp out on his lawn that looks just like the lamp in Narnia when you come out of the wardrobe. Push through the fur. Sorry, that's from a movie. But C.S. Lewis basically was an atheist for a while.
Yeah, I know it's.
Part of it was World War One, and losing a friend, and all that stuff, surviving himself. But when he came out of it, and he had associates like Tolkien and others, they essentially persuaded him not to completely have his faith back as he was as a child. We don't do that, but to recognize that you do have to believe in a meta-narrative to just be a human with a life set of goals and so
I had
on.
this conversation recently with a friend of mine, and we were speaking about philosophy and the importance of philosophy. And the point I was making was exactly what you're saying. We all have a meta-narrative. Like, everybody has a philosophy, like whether you know it or not. And they're like, well, I don't have a philosophy. That is a philosophy. Like,
Oh yeah, you can't escape it.
if you choose to be apathetic or nihilistic or say that these things don't matter, that itself is a philosophy.
That is.
So you do have
Yeah.
to have a meta-narrative. You can't.
You're trapped. It's a linguistic trap.
Yeah.
You can't get out of it, because we've set the rules
So that you can't.
so that you can't escape this dilemma. But C.S. Lewis argues that he chose to believe in Christianity as a Roman Catholic, which frustrated Tolkien a little bit, because Tolkien was the Church of England. There is a slight difference there, of course. But in any case, Lewis's choosing the meta-narrative of Christianity was the argument that it was the best meta-narrative available to human beings
Yep.
by comparison to other possible narratives. Well, and you have to say, well, what kind of value do you have in order to determine which is the best?
Right. And why have you come to that conclusion
Yeah.
if they came to that conclusion?
Yeah, and obviously worldwide, you don't have that statistical number of people choosing that. I mean, Catholicism, or Christianity, I should broaden it, is one of the primary religions of the world, but you also have Buddhism, you also have Islam.
Those are the top three right there.
I think so, yeah. But and of course there's splitting right away almost.
Different
Shia, Sunni,
Yeah.
But in any case, so talking about meta-narration, talking about values, talking about the American dilemma that values are considered to be an opinion,